that's really our purpose, right? To touch people in positive way, if that's your message.
Right.
And how that lands on someone, we can't control,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Which
Because we
yeah.
don't know how the waves, like we don't know how their wave is, right?
It's not our business to control someone else's waves. I don't need to be in the intricate details of someone's life and making them do things
Well,
that.
that's an interesting point, because what it made me think about is like it's a bit like ocean waves,
Mm-hmm.
so these are just waves colliding, right? So somebody will happen to jump into this, gain some connection or motivation, inspiration, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
and that wave might take their wave to another direction
Yeah.
or impact the magnitude and other things behind it, and that creates like a spiraling effect.
Mm-hmm.
So when we look at that zoom out as the ocean moving, that's really our purpose, right? To touch people in positive way, if that's your message.
Right.
And how that lands on someone, we can't control,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Which
Because we
yeah.
don't know how the waves, like we don't know how their wave is, right?
It's not our business to control someone else's waves.
Right. It doesn't matter,
Yeah.
because it's a beautiful thing, just like looking at the ocean waves as a whole. Anyways, we're
Yeah.
not judging it like, oh, this wave canceled that one out.
Yeah. Yeah. That is a
It's just
very
what it is.
yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the concept of acceptance. Accepting things as they are without trying to have your ego control it.
Yeah, it's easier said than done, of course,
Mm-hmm.
as people like myself, I should say, who are OC, like obsessive compulsive, and they want things a certain way. But
That's a whole other topic.
yeah,
What is OC versus
yeah,
excellence?
that's kind of what it is. So it's not OCD fully, but it's like having like OC traits and like wanting to attempt for perfectionism, knowing very well that there's a such thing as perfect.
Mm-hmm.
So there's limits to those things, right? And one of the things that I like is a running analogy I got from that book, Can't Hurt Me. And so he's like, in jogging and running, there are zones. Are you familiar with those?
Yeah, I've at a very introductory level, I heard
Like
about the
there's heart
different
rate
zones.
zones.
Yeah.
So, depending on the beats per minute, you're in zone one, which is like your rest, like zone one, rest, walking kind of zone. Zone two is a little bit harder than that, to the degree where you could still have a conversation. Zone three is harder than that. You can't have a conversation. You start to lose the ability so far. Zone four or five is more like, think about in nature running away from like a tiger, sprinting kind of level.
Yeah.
So he's like, think about the thoughts that you're having in the day to day and ask yourself, can I control this? And if you can't control it, you got to put that thought in that zone one, which is like minimal effort. You're not going to put that much brain resources into it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just going to be there, but
Mm-hmm.
you're not going to, like obsess about it, especially those thoughts that are going to do that to you. When you wake up and you meditate, you have to say, if this was to come up, then I would feel this way. So when it comes up, to put in zone one.
Yeah. That's a really good exercise. That's really good. It's really good. No, it's seriously really good. Because if
So
you don't,
his example is very
mm-hmm.
interesting. Would you like to know?
Yeah, yeah, go ahead.
So he's like, I know, for example, when I wake up tomorrow at 4 tomorrow, I'm not going to want to run. I already know that I'm going to have this thought. So when I get up, I'm not going to let that thought take over. I'm going to put in a zone one, like you knew you were going to think this, but you're not going to let this actually turn into something stressor that takes over.
I like that. Yeah, I really like that. I like that. And it, especially like with meditation, because I started meditating last year as well.
Mm.
I don't think people realize the impact of observing your thoughts.
Oh yeah.
Because when you start observing your thoughts, or starting to practice observing your thoughts, because that was the hardest thing for me before I started meditating, because my thoughts would be like just
Mm-hmm.
like a white noise going on in my brain, like you know, like just constant things. And then I
Right.
just so then when I started meditating, the white noise started to become a lot less staticky, a lot less fuzzy, right? Because I just had things. So I had really bad like anxiety and overthinking. So now I'm finally at that place because I've practiced meditating and trying to forcefully calm my mind, observe what's
Mm-hmm.
going on in my mind, observe those thoughts, observe the patterns, observe the feelings. Like, why do I feel low today?
Mm.
It's funny because now you're telling me this technique of like now put it into zone 1. So it's a very timely conversation because like I have thoughts and I have feelings where I'm like, okay, I know I'm not going to feel like doing it tomorrow. That's a sign I'm not going to do it tomorrow. Like I give into it.
Right.
But stepping back, my intention is not giving into it. My intention is completely different.
Yeah, I mean, you can't give into it. I mean, sometimes you will, but maybe you give into it, and it's like the analogy of like a cookie jar, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's say, or like your favorite treat, you know where you store it, and you might do things to store it a little bit further, so it's harder to reach. So when you're getting out of your room and you catch yourself in the middle of the journey of trying to go get it, and that's the first time you realize, like, oh shit, I'm just acting on instinct.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not thinking about this. It's okay to catch yourself there and say, like, okay, I knew I was going to do this, but I'm not going to do this now. And put it into zone 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really like that. It's really, really good.
And some things are worth putting into zone 4 and 5,
Yes.
because when you put that energy into it, you can accomplish something great with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I've been really balancing, really, at this stage of my life.
Can you give an example of something recent that you put into a zone 1 and then something that you put into like a zone 4 or 5?
Zone 4, 5 would be like at work, a project being behind,
Ah,
right? Then me being like, I manage a team of like 10 engineers right now.
that's a lot of engineers to manage.
Yeah. So there's a lot of projects. So there's this project that was behind, and like I'm in meetings a lot. But I had to ask myself, okay, would my involvement deeper at the code level at this point, would it help this project?
Hmm.
And the answer was yes.
Hmm.
So I made that judgment call. But I have to do it in a way that the engineers see that as collaborative. So, pairing with them, helping them out, not letting them feel judgment. It's not coming from a space of like, I don't trust you. It's just that I think I could add value here.
Right.
So to recognize that, but realize that this actually takes me beyond and I have to do extra now, then I'm comfortable doing. Now it's impacting the level that I want, like, my work to be an autopilot
Hmm.
versus not.
Mm-hmm.
But I know that I need to do this for a short period to see some success. Right?
Right.
So I spend time in it. and then 2 weeks, 3 weeks, now the project's on track, I take a step back again. So now I'm back in zone one. So you got to know also when to take a step back, because when things are good and you're still zone 4, zone 5, you're going to stress your team out.
Yeah.
So you got to take a step back and go back to zone one and let them do it the way they want to at this point.
That's another conversation of
Yeah.
indicators. How do you identify the proper indicators for the proper response?
Yeah, I think in tech we do a good job. We have things like retros. We make the team actively feel heard. And it's also, this goes back to government. Like, how do you view the team? Do you want to be a team person that's like a dictator, right? And then you're like just going to be hated, right?
Right.
Maybe you're going to get output, but that's not the best output, I think. I think a good output is when you have like a representative democracy, so everybody gets a vote, or more like a parliamentary democracy where they have the right to veto me, but I also have the right to veto them. So that's how I like to run the teams.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I find that way is the most effective. Oh,
Right,
I didn't even talk
right.
about like my background like that, because I do tech project management, right?
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
tech project management. So there was a couple challenging projects where I had taken over a project, and the team was so burnt out because the previous project manager was a dictator.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So retros kind of are good things for this, because you have a start, stop, and continue. Meaning, like, what should we start doing? What should we stop doing? What should we continue doing? And reflections on that. That tells you a lot about like how the team is feeling. So I know when there was retros, like recently, we had a lot of things in continue and some things in start. So the team is like not saying too much about stop this or stop that. So that's how you know that the team is liking what's going on. That's a way to kind of test the barometer, if you will.
Yeah. So it's basically,
unless you're a tyrant and they're just not telling you, like, but that can happen too. So you have to be self-reflective as well. And then you might get peer feedback, or you might get manager feedback. So you have to listen to those as well.
Right. So step 1, practice self-reflection, practice observing your thoughts, practice observing your behavior. Step 2, if you're managing a team, provide the space for them to be open towards you. So you're basically allowing yourself to be in a kind of vulnerable position, actually.
Yeah, exactly. You have to be willing to take critique and just listen to it. You don't have to react to it.
Step
and
3,
then when you
don't
process
be reactive.
it, you can respond to it. Yeah. So it's an interesting thing, because I'm listening to I don't know if it's an autobiography or biography of Nelson Mandela. And he talks about the local chiefs and how they used to have a meeting with the villagers and stuff. And one of the ways was everybody listened to everybody, regardless of the status they hold in society, if they had an opinion. And we wouldn't leave until everybody's heard. And the leader, you can openly criticize, and he doesn't respond, and neither does he show a reaction. And when everybody's done, the leader will get like a voice. And he saw the best leaders were actually the people that summarize everybody's opinions and move forward. Because as a leader, he said, you're a shepherd.
Yes.
and the goats might think that they're leading the way, but all around you're actually maneuvering, ensuring they're going on the right path. That's what you want them to feel.
Mm-hmm. I really like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like that.
So it kind of goes back to, I think, what I think about of like representative democracy and a parliamentary democracy.
It's so funny. Now you make me want to research more into these different types of governments. No, seriously, because especially like the way how things get so politicized, you don't want to touch anything related to government with like a 10-foot stick because it's so charged up today. But when you take away all the chargedness and everybody's emotions out of it, and you just look at just structure of interacting with people and really trying to find the optimal way, I think your approach is it's not conventional, right? Because everyone just when people try to look at leadership development skills, they just go to a leadership book, not necessarily other sources of ways to look at leadership.
Okay.
So like your approach of, actually intensely learning the different types of government, different forms of government, and then reading, autobiographies or biographies of the different leaders and taking away how they were able to be the most effective leader with those type of different concepts. I think it's really interesting. A different way to develop yourself and a different way of pulling different information from somewhere that's kind of random to develop your leadership skills. Mm-hmm.
I don't think I did it for that purpose. I think it just happened to be that I was listening to the autobiography of Nelson Mandela and that came up. But my mind is always trying to connect to a topic that's relevant to me. So that got highlighted to me, and I was like, oh, this is pretty interesting. Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying, right? Like exposing yourself to different topics, different concepts, seemingly different topics.
Yeah, the hack for me has been like during when I work out, I used to listen to music, but I realized like this is not really helping me become smarter. I could instead listen to audiobooks.
That is
and
true.
I started doing that, and actually like I'm pretty addicted now. I'm listening to like a book a week or something, and it's a very easy way to consume data information. You can actually make it go faster. Yeah, so that's been nice.
That's
Podcasts are also great.
Yeah. My husband, he listens to audiobooks or podcasts when he works out. I'm like, how do you do that? I need music.
Yeah. So that's also great, right?
That is good. So I know that we're at time, right? You have to go.
Yeah, I have another call, but I'm happy to do a chat again at some other time.
Yeah, this was awesome. I feel like we had so many like subsequent topics we could dig into, so thank you so much, Asif. Thank you for joining.